Mm. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Mm, Getting set up here. Hello. How are you today? Where's everybody joining from? I'm just trying to get on YouTube going. Maybe it's on the right channel. Hello. Hi. How's everybody tonight? We're live streaming on TikTok and YouTube. And today we're going to talk about the third eye. But please say hi and tell us where you're from. Oh, the college friend. How are you doing? How's school going? Hello. Hello, Ducky. How are you? You're in Iowa? How's everything in Iowa? Hi, Hi, Karen. Harpoon Springs, Florida. How's Florida? Oh, hello, Jonathan from Ireland. Wow, you're like on the way other side. Well, welcome. Turning green. Oh, is it? That's nice. You do gardening? Are you going to be doing any kind of gardening or planting of stuff? Alondra. Hi, Alondra. Oh, it's a bit more cool than usual. Oh, over here, it's just getting started. Like we're just getting into spring. Oh, hey, Rachel's back. It's your birthday? Happy birthday. Welcome back. You do an herbal garden and your brother does the veggies. That's nice. Yeah, I think in Iowa, you guys have good farmland. So that would be a really nice place to do farming. All right. How's everybody else? Happy birthday, Rachel. Rachel's been gone from us for a little while, so she's back again. Oh, my cat's here. My cat always comes exactly when I go live. She'll disappear all day and then she'll appear for just to bug me. Oh no, it glitched. It's just a little glitch in the matrix. You know what happens is when the views go straight up, like it appears to be a lot of people in the live, it's kind of like TikTok is checking it out. So I think that causes like a lot of glitches and stuff too. So hopefully the glitches will stop. But I'm also on YouTube if you're having any problems here on TikTok. But welcome to Meditation Monday. I come on every Monday at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we've been talking about a lot of different things. Like we started with the 1-minute meditation and the value of silence. And then we went into different types of meditations for change and transformation. And we talked about last week, I gave a pretty big and in-depth talk about transformation and how you go about the process of change and the steps and all that stuff. And then today we're going to talk about the Great Awakening, the third eye, and what is really going on since 2020. And how do you work with this new energy? And also, if you're going through a third eye awakening, or if your third eye is awakening, we're going to talk about how you know that's happening to you and some things you can do to awaken in peace, I guess. because the thing about a third eye awakening is it's not something that you can control. It's something that kind of organically, naturally happens. And with the Great Awakening we're going through, a lot of people's third eye has been turned on, especially since 2020. And this is kind of a problem we're going through right now, because when your third eye awakens, it amplifies the good, bad, right, wrong. So it just is it's like a huge, amplification. And my cat's here purring, so you guys can have some purr energy. So what happens when we go through a third eye awakening is that everything gets amplified. Where you currently are, everything gets amplified. And this is why there appears to be a lot of discord, chaos, mental illness, a lot of things that are happening in our society, is because it amplifies. Like if you were depressed and then your third eye turned on, you would become more depressed. If you were very joyful and happy and elated and excited, you would become more of those things. So when your third eye awakens, it amplifies where you already are. And that's often what people experience, is just an amplification of where they are. So if you're sick, you get sicker. If you're cranky, you get crankier. If you're hot, you get hotter. So it just amplifies where you are and what's really going on. Okay, exactly. You wish you would have known that before it turned on. Yeah, exactly. That's why in the ancients way, we always say you have to prepare for the awakening. You don't just dive into it. There comes a point when you dive into it, but that's why you always needed a teacher or a guide, because if you just dived in, you could go crazy. And that's what we're seeing, is that since 2020, there was a grand awakening and the third eye got awoken for many people. And we're just seeing the amplification of this energy. So I wanted to talk about today, like, what are these things and how can you start to streamline the energies? Because until, what usually happens with their third eye awakening is that it just comes like a rush of energy. And then when it's like kind of you're adjusting or integrating, then you can understand, how and what happened and how to work with it and what's really going on. So somebody asked, so how do we go back and be happy? That's the problem with the third eye awakening, is that once it awakens, you never go back to the person you were before. You can only prepare, and you can only integrate into the person that you are now. Because once you see the truth of the world and the truth of who you are and the truth of everything, you can't go back. You can't go back to sleep. You try. There's that character in the Matrix who he pays to get out of everything, and then he tries to go back to his old life. You really can't. You try though. You try. So the only thing you really can do now is integrate into the person you are now and how your energy and your auric field operates. And see, the thing about it, like we've talked about a couple of meditation Mondays ago, it's all about your aura and your energy field. That's the whole thing about this. And that's why we do the meditation Mondays. We're strengthening and tonifying and expanding and evolving the auric fields, the energy. That's what they call your frequency, right? Your frequency is everything. Hi, Sylvia. So let's see what you guys are saying. I was so happy in 2020. I was living it up. Hey, Blissful Oracle. Yeah. And then 2020 hit and then boom, right? You want to try it again and be happy and get the amplified happy instead. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's the thing, is like when your third eye awakens, if you're not prepared for it and you're in a sad, depressed, lonely, chaotic, energy field, it's going to make it like that for a while. And that's why you see a lot of people who have these third eye awakenings and they're not happy. But for those of you who are going through third eye or want to open your third eye, we're going to talk about some of the things that start to happen that are preparing you, and then what actually happens when you are going through a third eye awakening, and then also how to integrate those energies. So there's like 3 steps to it. The first step is obviously when you're first going through a third eye awakening, or you're about to go through a third eye awakening, one of the biggest things that happens is that your friends change. So a lot of people, when they're going through the awakening, they start to notice either friends dropping off, or you're not interested in your friends. Maybe you stopped drinking and all your friends were drinking, or you moved, or something in your life changed where the people around you now have to change too. That's a big start with the awakening. It's usually something shifts around you. Okay, so those are the things you're going to look at. Oh, okay. So if you're intuitive, you kind of know, oh, something's shifting. I'm about to do, like, something's about to awaken in me. Another thing that can often happen is your job will change. You'll shift jobs, you will quit jobs, you will get a new job. Something will change. Remember how last week we talked about change? Well, this week it's like something is changing, and like finances, job, that kind of stuff. Hi, Candy. And relationship changes. So I want you to think about 2020. All these things were happening, and they're maybe still happening for some of you, but a lot of you went through these changes in 2020. Relationship changes, single to divorce, divorce to couple, something relationship wise changed. Death. A lot of people lost somebody they loved, maybe a specific close person, a parent, a grandparent, a friend, a family member. There were a lot of death happenings, right? So that's another catalyst to a third eye awakening. Birth, somebody being born, being pregnant, those kind of changes, like somebody's about to come into the world. That's another sign. Health changes, going from sick to well, or well to sick. Okay, so health changes, being diagnosed with something, those health changes are also usually, and specifically if you're going through a third eye awakening, you're going to notice shifts in the head, right? You're going to have sinus issues, eye pressure problems, glaucoma, anything that has to do with like this part, front and back. Yeah, see, your grandmother passed away. Yeah, see, that's a catalyst, right? And then like any kind of spiritual change, like dreams changing, vividness. We're going to talk about some of the things that people see as when their third eye starts awakening. But when you're going through an awakening, and now we're kind of thinking back to 2020, because in 2020, a lot of people awoken and are still working through those changes. There are a massive amount of people who died in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And probably still, but for sure those 3 years. And that's part of the awakening too, is that the people dying are ascending, they're getting out of here, and the people who are left behind are now integrating and receiving that energy. So what happens when an elder dies, like you're saying your grandmother passed away, maybe your father, mother, grandparent, great aunt, uncle, somebody who's of the generation above you or the generation above that. What happens, and especially if you're the one who's going to awaken, because in the families, there's usually a healer, and there's usually someone who is going to receive that elder's energy, especially when you come from families like of indigenous blood or Asian or African or a spiritual bloodline, let's say. When you come from those types of bloodlines, when your elders pass, they pass on the energy to you. They pass that spiritual power to you. And see, there are ancient ceremonies and things that we do. Even people before they die, they would do that and they would pick the person. But in this day and age, that's not done. But if you're the one to receive the energy, that can be a catalyst to a big spiritual awakening, because that person unknowingly and knowingly is passing on power to you, the generational power. And if that person was spiritually gifted, then it's like now your responsibility to grow that power. That's what they say, even like, like when somebody's guru or a teacher of a high, spiritual power passes, they pass their light on, their energy on to their students. And then the students go through a spiritual awakening. Hi, Kim. So someone says their ex-boyfriend passed away. Your biological grandma passed away. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Your biological grandma is really sick right now. Oh, thank you for the gift, Blissful. And then Sweet Pea's asking, can they pass the energy to you if they weren't aware of their power or energy when they were living? Yes. Yes. See, and that's the thing about this particular thing. There, in ancient times, and still to this day, we have rituals that we do to consciously pass on power, especially, when you have somebody who's like a medicine man or woman or a shaman in your family, and they are your elder, they will pass it on to you at some point. They will give you power. And that's what the whole shamanic path is about. That's why you always need a teacher or a guide, because the person who has the power will pass it on to the students. Like with my students, when I start working with them, then I pass on power to them so that their gifts can grow. And that's what happens with the elders in our family, is if they have spiritual gifts, but let's say they didn't develop them, that they just had them, but they didn't take them to those next levels, then what would happen is that they would, when they pass, those particles go to you, those energetic particles, those, they're small little microcosms that go to you. And that's what the spirit world wants, is for you to develop them. And then it's like, how you will know it happened, because one of the telltale signs is that, after my grandpa died or something, my visions increased. And it was like, whoa, I've seen things I never saw before. I felt things I never saw before. I seen my life in a different way. A lot of people will have this also happen when they have a near-death experience, when they almost die and they see something and then they come back. They touch the spirit world, so to say, and then they come back and their whole life is different. And from that day on, they have healing abilities, they have spiritual, visions, they have things that they didn't have before that near-death experience. And so it's the same thing with when somebody dies. It's something that you didn't have before, or you had, but it just amplified. So when you think about a spiritual awakening or a third eye awakening, what you really want to think about is what was amplified in my life. And it could be, like I said earlier, good, bad, right, wrong. It's not always a good thing, and it's not always a bad thing. It's just whatever you were experiencing at that time is amplified. And that's what death will do. And also birth. When somebody gives birth or experiences something around them, like a new being coming in, the birth of a new being. And this can also even be pets. Like if you got a new cat or dog or a ferret or something, pets can also catalyze these things, but usually to a lesser degree, but sometimes not. It just depends. Sometimes you'll get a cat or dog and it will just completely, transform your life. Yeah, you adore your dog. It'll just completely transform your life because it's the energy. It's something about the chemistry and the energy that happens that is the catalyst for your spiritual awakening and your third eye to awaken. So these are some things I want you to think about, because tonight what I was thinking about is that most people experience these things, especially in 2020, 2021, 22. A lot of us experienced them way before then. But I think right now, as a global collective, especially because we're just ending this month of shedding and letting go and releasing, that a lot of people right now are integrating. They're integrating the energies of this massive awakening that we've been going through. And so when we're integrating it, it's like we have to go back a little bit to understand it, but also to understand, what can we be doing that will integrate this energy so that we continue to go down the right way. Because once you have a third eye awakening or spiritual awakening, like I said earlier, you can't go back to where you were, who you were, what happened. It's like when somebody dies, you can't bring them back, right? And so we have to only integrate and now become and embody the new person that we are. And that's where we as a collective are. A lot of people went through the third eye awakening and didn't even know they went through it. And they're just thinking now like they're crazy or they have mental health issues or whatever, when in fact, it's just that their life now is in a new place. It's in a new perspective. It's in a new frequency. And so when you go through a third eye awakening, it really is about, the first part of it is the intensity, but then the after effects are just processing and integrating. And then when you fully integrate, you're in the new life. And that's what's happening this week on the 20th, as a lot of people are going to reach that point of integration, and the solar eclipse is just going to push it in. It's going to just be like a little cherry on the top to integrate those energies, because that's what eclipses are. They're resets. So Sweet Pea is asking, if someone has 2 or more people pass within a year with the past one's gifts, go to one person or spread to multiple if there are other spiritually gifted people or healers in that family? It can go to multiple. It could go to multiple people. It just depends on the line. So like if there's, like you said, multiple people, then it'll go to multiple people. Like when a guru passes, because they have so much spiritual light, when they pass, they can pass that light on to millions of people and no problem. No problem. It's just all about how much of that spiritual light you have. So instead of Bud Light, it's spiritual light. Candy, you're going to go to Sedona in August. Ooh, it's hot. Just be prepared for hot weather. Eudora. Okay, let me see what other questions. Do we have any other questions here? Thank you so much for telling us about passing on gifts. I really believe this too. Yeah, it's ancient. You can look it up as an ancient practice. We still do to this day. See, a lot of these things are known but not known. And we're still practicing them though. You've got lots. Bob Marley. Spirit light, yeah, spirit light, not Bud Light. Spirit light. Yeah, so, think about light. Light has no bounds, it has no limits. The sun doesn't just shine on one person. It's the same thing with these kind of the light. When a person dissolves, when they leave their body, when they go to the spirit world, they leave behind all those memories, all those impressions, all those energies, and then they are dispersed into the atmosphere. and they can direct where they want it to go too. This is why, like in Tibetan Buddhism, when a very high spiritual being dies, they don't just die. Their body will be starting to die, but they will still be consciously there. And so the people around them will know, oh, okay, they're not gone yet. So we have to let them sit there, and their body won't decompose or anything. They will look dead, but they will still have consciousness. And it's because those beings have done so much meditation and spiritual work in their lifetime that they can will themselves to die, and they can choose the exact moment that they're going to leave their body. And it's a profound thing, because those beings who do that, when they do the ritual of death and they burn their body in the stupa, when they get the ashes back, there are pearls. There are like little pearls. They look like pearls in the ashes. And this is the sign of a highly evolved spiritual being, and what they call like a bodhisattva, an enlightened being. And that's how you know somebody's enlightened. That's actually when they cremate the body and then they sweep away everything and they have the ashes, they will find those little crystals. They're like little pearls. And those little pearls have a lot of spiritual light into them. And those spiritual pearls, like there's some pearls, you can go view them. They have like museum viewings and stuff. And when you sit and you meditate with those ashes, they can trigger a third eye awakening. They can trigger a spiritual awakening, because the being who was embodying that energy is still present in those ashes. Good evening. Your uncle saw the light. How do you as a teacher provide power to your students? So when you start to work with a spiritual teacher, a shaman, what happens is it's a spiritual contract, something that was already predestined before birth. And so when you meet your spiritual teacher, you will know, because your visions will become more intensified. The spirit world will become more closer to you. You will reach things that you had never reached before. You turn on. So you may have had gifts before you meet your teacher, but then after you meet your teacher, it takes it to the next level. And so when you become a committed student, what happens is that the spirit world, my spirits that I have already empowered and gotten, nice and plumpy, as I say, they now become your spirits too. And they will amplify your spiritual power, and they will empower. That's what we mean by empowerments. And that's why we have ceremonies to do empowerments. That's the difference between like getting a tarot card reading or something like that, is that a tarot card reading won't empower you. It won't give you more spiritual power. What it will do is just tell you things. Oh, I see this, or oh, this or that, right? But when you start working with the spiritual teacher, you now are going to be empowered. And so after you finish your training, you always will, you'll have ongoing training if you're a real shaman. But when you finish the first initial training, then the spiritual teacher will take some of that back. They will say, okay, now let's see what your power is, because then you can see the real growth. So when you first start working with the teacher, it's extremely intense. And then as the intensity fizzles down, then you integrate and you process what you have gathered. And now you go walk that. Now you go do that. Now you take what you learned from your teacher and those spirits, and you go do your healing work. You go, meet your people. And then you will, continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. See, the thing about a shamanic path is there's no end to the spiritual power. It's just no end. Okay, sorry, I have to come back here. He said, I know working with you, I definitely felt it. It is the same as passing healing like Reiki. No, Reiki is your power. Reiki is the power you're getting from source. That's energy healing. Shamanic power is the power you're getting from spirits. So it's never yours. It's always spiritual power. And the power is coming in and through you. And that's why the whole training is about breaking your human mind so the spiritual mind can come in. And in spiritual mind, you can do the impossible. You can pull cancer out of people. You can heal mental illness. You can do things that are impossible because it's not you doing it. It's the spirit world doing it. And so with Reiki, what it is it's like you're receiving the energy, right? And a true Reiki master, which, you don't see a lot of in the West, you've got to go to Asia for this. But true Reiki masters can do that. They can do that. But in Reiki, the traditional Reiki system takes lifetimes to master. In this lifetime, you might get to level 1. The next lifetime, you might get to level 2. Another lifetime, it takes many lifetimes to get there. And the thing about Reiki is that it was a closed society. True Reiki is a closed society. It's very much like a shamanic practice where you have to be invited in because someone recognizes your gift. It recognizes that the spirit world wants to work with you. And true Reiki masters, they can just go like that and heal whatever your problem is. I've experienced it. They can just wave their hand and or even just look at you, because in Reiki, the advanced techniques, you have to learn how to use your eyes to heal people. Let's see. Yeah, so, and the thing about it is these practices are not overnight. This is something you practice and practice and practice and practice. And you go through many third eye awakenings, many spiritual awakenings, many things to get there. It's not like, nowadays with Reiki, you can take a one-day healing course or something like that. No, traditional healing is never like that. Never. And it's always an invited thing. You have to be invited. And the invitation doesn't come from humans. It comes from spirit. Yeah. The Rinpoche, yeah, he had that too. Okay, so I'm just looking through. Let's see. I'm so young. Where did I get my enlightenment from? Well, I'm not actually that young, but I started as a child. That's the thing too. I started doing readings at 3 years old. I was going up to strangers telling them stuff, making them cry at 3 years old. And then I was always an introverted child. I was always sick as a child. And I had a lot of time to read and study art and connect to spirit. So I was always connected to spirit. And the thing about my path that I think is a little different is I come from cultures that understood it. It wasn't like a lot of people I talk to here in the West where people will say, well, I had these gifts as a child, but I couldn't express them because my parents, said this, or I was in a Christian or whatever home and my religion didn't allow it. And so for me, I didn't have those blockages that people have. So I was always able to just continuously grow my spiritual experience. And then I met my teacher when I was in my late teens, early 20s. And then that went to the next level. So it's like my whole life has been about spiritual growth. And I think that's why it's a little different and why I was able to just develop my gift as it is. And also my life experiences shaped it. So the thing about a shamanic path is you don't choose it, it chooses you. Now you can choose to practice shamanism, like if you want to learn how to do altars and offerings and that and this and that. But to be a functioning professional shaman, it requires training, commitment, and the spirit world. The spirit world says, oh, I want to work with you. And most of the time when you're a shaman, you're like, well, that's nice, but I don't want to work with you. And most healers, they fight their path because it's a really hard path. It's not an easy path. It's not the path of, normal. It's the path of really, really abnormal. is an abnormal path. Nobody wants it. And then the people who aren't chosen are the ones who want it. And the people who are chosen, they don't want it. You wish you would have knew this before. I can't wait to work with you soon. Oh, nice. Yeah. Anytime you're ready. Oh, thank you. You've always been drawn to tarot, but I have gut feelings and then they happen. Yeah. The thing about it is like I like tarot. I don't think tarot is where you should stay at. You know, if you're going to be growing and evolving your gifts, tarot is a great beginning point, but ultimately you want to get to the point where you don't have tools, where you don't have to use anything. You can use your eyes, like I was saying. You know, you just use your gift. And then that way, you know, I think because the thing about tarot is like when you start really getting dependent on what those cards are telling you, you can kind of dull down your intuition and your spiritual gifts because you're now relying on that picture more than what you're seeing, feeling, and sensing. And that's why eventually, as your gift grows, you really should be moving out of tarot. Tarot is really good for self-readings when you're reading yourself, because when it comes to reading you, it's almost impossible unless you're very connected. Because most people doubt it or have delusions or don't want to see the truth of a situation, especially when you're talking about love or a job or something where you have intense emotions. And so when you know the tarot and you can do a tarot reading, then, you know, you have more perspective. Are you saying use your third eye? Yeah, use your third eye, use your gifts. Do you do readings or mediumships online? Sometimes I do. Every Monday, I do Meditation Monday, and it's live streamed on TikTok and YouTube. And so if you don't get to watch it live, you can watch the replay later. But every Monday, we talk about meditation. So last week, we talked about transformations. This month that we're in, that's going to be ending on the 20th. I follow the Tonopoali, which is the ancient Toltec calendar. On the 20th is going to be the end of this month of shedding. And this whole month has been about transformation. So if you're going through a change or a transformation, then definitely watch last week's Meditation Monday, because you'll get more clarity and stuff on that. But today, what I wanted to talk about is the third eye awakening, because we're going to go into the new moon on the 20th. And on the 20th, it's going to be an opportunity for a reset, and it's going to be an opportunity to connect to your third eye to get visions, clarity, and direction on your next steps, because this eclipse is going to be powerful and it's going to lead us into the energies of the whole year. It could be a life-changing moment if you really want it to be. Your dog kicked you out. Yeah. Wood out. Okay, so let's go back to the third eye. Is there any other questions? So we talked about some of the things that happen when you're going through a third eye awakening. You know, the changes, the deaths, the births, all that stuff. Yeah. A curse or generational curse. Yeah, you can see that. You know how you can see that? You can see that through the patterns of suffering. A good example of a cursed family is JFK, the whole Kennedy family. There has been an emotional clearing. Yeah, but if you come and you sit with me and you have a reading, I can tell you all that stuff, because we do ancestral healing. And we can say, oh, okay, this ancestor died this way, this. And we look at all your patterns. And see, the whole thing about a family is the patterns. So this is kind of correlating to the third eye, because a lot of times, like I was talking about earlier, when an elder dies, and they pass that power on to you, it's most likely because they didn't finish the work of the awakening. So it's just like your family can be cursed. It's so your family can be blessed. I know everybody wants to talk about the curses, but your family could be blessed. And you can take that blessing to the next level. And then if you teach your kids or nieces, nephews, whatever, they can take it to the next level and the next level. And that's how your tree grows. That's how your family tree, so to say, the tree of your family, the blood of your family grows, is because you're taking what the previous generation did and making it better. And then they're making it better and then better and better. And that's how you have a blessed family, is because the ancient teaching was the law of the corn. And the law of the corn, this is why a native country, like you go to any native place, is going to be filled with stories of corn and corn. Because corn is incredible. Most people just miss the whole point of the corn. But the corn talks about making each generation better. See, the original corn didn't look anything like it looks now. It was modified, and not like in the Monsanto way, but it was modified from this kind of weed looking thing to what it was in the native times. And then now it's taken a whole nother form to where you can eat it and whatever, right? But corn is the perfect example of how each generation should be getting better and better and better and better. So if you have a spiritual gift in your family, and this is why shamanism runs in families, it's up, the grandmother will pass it on to the grandchild, and then the grandchild will pass it on to their kids, and so on and so on and so on. So by the 7th generation, it's completely different and more powerful than the first generation. That's the law of the corn, is that every generation should be better than the previous, and every student should outmaster their teacher. So that's the goal. As a teacher, it's that your student should surpass you. That's the goal. That's the goal. He says, after your last meditation Monday, I've been seeing snakes everywhere. Yeah, it's about transformation, the snakes. Last week, we talked about snakes. So if you're really wanting to know about change and transformation, that's the one. And if you're starting to see snakes, then for sure. Who is Joe? I don't know Joe. Okay. Let's see. Is there any other questions? Right after my aunt, 14 years older than my mom, passed in the winter, I had more instances of my spiritual power come through. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And I think now that we talked about it, you'll see it. You'll be like, yeah, and it could be from 10 years ago. Who knows? Yeah, see, my grandma was gifted, but was very Christian. Yeah. Then my fiance in an accident, then lost my grandma, all 3 months apart. Yeah, it happens a lot in a spiritual awakening, when your third eye is awakening. Also, when you're, that's a symptom of a lot of things, because sometimes when you're being called to do a shamanic path or spiritual path, everybody around you starts dying. You experience massive death all at once. And that's the spirit world calling you. And so that's the thing about it, is people think that the spiritual stuff is supposed to be all airy, fairy, light, and why did you let it? No, it's not. A lot of times it's dark and dreary and depressing and sad. Spiritual path can be very dreary and dark and challenging, because the spirit world is testing you. And they're calling you. They're saying it's your time. So one of the main symptoms of a spiritual calling, like you're supposed to be a healer, is death. Death is happening all around you. And when death is happening all around you, and you're also starting to have visions and what they call hallucinations and things that doctors, and there's no diagnosis for, and you get sicker and sicker, and you have what we call the spiritual sickness, until you get to your path, until you meet your teacher, until you follow, that won't go away. People will be sick for years and years and have no physical reason to be sick and live with these, and they're kind of strange disorders, like sometimes it's like fibromyalgia or like these kind of diagnoses that we know of, but we don't have like a cure for. But what happens is that when you embrace your spiritual gifts and you step into your healing path, all that goes away because it's your path calling you. Can you have the opposite, lose a gift when someone passes? Yeah, I'm sure you can. You know, the thing about a spiritual gift is it can be given and it can be taken away. That's the thing about a spiritual gift. And you see that happen to a lot of people, like when they get real famous or real rich and wealthy, and then their spiritual gift will go away. It will just, that's why the elders always say be humble. Because when you start getting too into your ego and too full of human mind, the spirit will leave. I don't want to work with you no more. Yeah, the snakes is the vibration. If you had a dream about snakes, definitely watch last week's replay because it'll make a lot of sense. I talked a lot about the snake and the Toltecs and what the snake meaning is. Well, a lot of you had a lot of death going on. Generational curse. I guess we'll have to do a session on generational curses, huh? Yeah, a lot of people will die. Have you heard of someone being able to smell death? Yes, that's part of, that's your dog nose. And I have a video on TikTok about dog nose, so watch it. But that's a psychic gift, is dog nose. And when you have dog nose, it's like you smell everything that nobody else smells, and spirit communicates through the sense of the nose. This is what recently happened to me, the death part. I was studying medicine to be a doctor in college, and I recently found out my grandmother, who passed, was a medicine woman. Oh, there you go. Intense ringing in the ear is clairaudience. But first of all, you know, the thing is like what I always say, because everybody's having the ringing in their ears, is first make sure it's not a medical problem. Because a lot of times the ringing in the ears is also related to mineral deficiency and or head stuff, you know, so you just make sure like if you go to the doctor and you have ringing in the ears and they can't figure out why you have ringing in the ears, then you start looking at the spiritual stuff and you start to understand, like, when is this ringing in my ear happening? Like, what's going on? Which ear is it? Because different ears have different meanings. Your left has a different meaning than your right. And you also have to start, you know, listening, because a lot of times when that ringing is happening, it means you're supposed to stop and listen. Get a pen, get a paper, get a recording device, and start listening, start meditating and getting the message, because it's a message coming through. That's why there's a ringing. And that's why you have to start understanding the difference between the left side and the right side, and making sure that you're getting enough minerals. Also, making sure you're not consumed with technology, because the technology is another problem we're having with the ringing in the ears, because a lot of people are getting the ringing in the ears because of the 5G technology. And that's why you have to check your minerals. And I recommend spirulina and or chlorophyll if you're having ringing in the ears. And sometimes, you know, that ringing in the ears, it can be like ding, or sometimes it can be very intense and very annoying. So definitely get that stuff, you know, checked out and figured out. And if you can, get some shungite. Oh, let's see. Unexplainable to the doctors. Exactly. Yeah, autoimmune stuff. Yeah. You guys are all awakening. You only talk on speaker. Yeah, 10G is coming. What if the abilities show different at different times? Yeah, that's normal. When you're going through an awakening, you're going to go through stages of the awakening. The first awakening is always intense. It comes out of the blue, it's intense. There's usually one of those triggers that I talked about earlier. And there's going to be that, like I said, that amplification process. And for some people, it's going to be more visual. That's the clairvoyance. That's your typical third eye awakening. This part is awakening. And so parts of the third eye that awaken is you're going to see things like crystal clear. Like, have you ever had that happen where you just walk out and the world just looks and feels like crystal clear? That's part of a third eye awakening. It's just third eye, like things just, because it's amplified. Your vision is now amplified and you're seeing it. Now, if you are starting to have migraines or intense sinus problems, allergies that come out of nowhere, that's symbols that something's blocked here. There's a blockage going on. And a lot of times when we're not embracing our gift, if we're trying to repress our gifts, if we're overly religious or whatever is blocking, you're going to start having migraines. You're going to start having head problems, dizziness, vertigo. You're going to start having issues in this region, glaucoma, intense eye pressure, dry eye, crying, all that stuff, because that energy has nowhere to go. And I'm talking about when it comes out of the blue, like you didn't have it before, and then now you're going through something in awakening, and these symptoms start appearing. A lot of times when you're just about to step into mediumship abilities and the spirit world is calling, the ancestors are calling, you'll get intense migraines if you're trying to avoid or repress it. If you're like, whoa, what's that shadow, or what, I don't, if you're trying to put it under, if you're trying to squash it and you can't, because the thing about it is that when the spirit world calls, the spirit world calls. It's nothing you can repress. If you try to repress it, it gets worse. Everything in your life just intensifies and gets worse because the third eye awakening is amplifying your energy. Yeah, when you're in the woods, you see things clearer, right? Because you're away from technology, you're away from people, you're away from pollution, you're in a clear space. That's what happens when you go to the desert. When you go to the desert, everything becomes crystal clear. And that's why all the holy people always went to deserts to awaken. What do you suggest for those head congestion symptoms or migraines? That's where you're going to have to start working on meditation and becoming less afraid of your gift. If it's a spiritual reason. So you can have migraines and things like that for physical reasons. That's why I always say make sure it's not a physical problem, because a lot of times people will say, oh, it's a spiritual thing, but they don't have the other symptoms. So it's all together, mind, body, spirit. But if you have gone to the doctors, nobody's been able to diagnose it, it's just happening, it's intensifying, then it's about embracing and developing your spiritual gift. And when you start to embrace and develop your spiritual gift, those things will go away. Jenna is saying, my body started falling apart 2 months ago and I can sense the energy, but don't know how to move it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because it's like something's calling you to work with it. But I would first start to understand, what is it that you're afraid of? It's different for everybody, but migraines, sinus issues, allergies, and now we're just talking about the third eye. Even, this is gonna be funny, but if you feel a presence, like an energy, like I've had people say this, where they feel like something's constantly here. That's third eye stuff. Being present in the moment, meditation, or internal like meditation. Well, the first thing I suggest is silence. Learning how to sit in and within the silence, right? Because that's your first thing. That's your first doorway into self, into connection, is your ability to go within. The next thing is then organically from your ability to go within silence. Because the problem with sometimes the guided meditation stuff is that you can also delude yourself. And I've had students do this before, and that's why I always recommend the silence, is that they will start going down a path of guided meditation, and then they will notice that it's actually ego-driven, not spirit-driven. This is why you need a teacher, because the teacher can tell you, no, you're in your head, you're in your ego. That's not a real vision, and that's why people don't like working with teachers, but they'll tell you the truth. They'll say, no, you're in your human mind, go back. And we have things that we do to help you get out of your human mind. And this is why I like the silence better, because when you are in the silence and you could just cultivate no mind first, then when you receive a message or information, it's pure. It's coming from pure spirit. It's not coming from your mind. And you'll know the difference because it will be simple. Spiritual messages are simple but true. Ego messages are complicated and chaotic. And a lot of times they're leading you down a wrong path. You stop eating meat, and now I just eat fruit and vegetables, but I'm working more on my meditation. That's good. That's good. You're cleaning out your body. And now when you go in to do your meditation, it might be easier because you don't have all that stuff in your body that's toxic. I want to astral plane. How do you achieve such? It's the same process. Astral projection, astral travel is about clearing your mind. It's everything in the spiritual world. If you want to develop your spiritual body, your spiritual, lens, your astral, whatever, all those words, telepathy, remote viewing, any psychic gift, you have to first clear your mind, because you won't know the difference between your ego and spirit otherwise. If you just keep, saying, oh, I'm going to astral travel, and you're making it up, which I know some people actually teach that, I've had a lot of students who told me, oh, this teacher told me just to make it up. And no, you don't just make it up, because then it's not true. You just lied to yourself. So the first thing is you want to, clear your mind. And that's why I started with the 1 minute meditation, 1 minute morning, noon, and night. Just clear the mind. It's not easy to do in this world, but if you get 1 minute of meditation, it'll build on more and more. And then you could do 5 minutes and 10 minutes and 20 minutes and longer. But the longer you meditate doesn't guarantee you're going to be more enlightened or anything either. There are people who meditate their whole life and get nowhere, because at some point, then you have to develop the other senses and receive the energy. You have to receive it. And most people, meditation is just for mindfulness. It's to find more peace, more happiness, more balance. But when you have a spiritual gift and the spirit world is calling you, meditation becomes your number one access tool to the inner realms. It becomes your number one thing, because the meditation will help you to understand yourself and the world around you and what your gifts are. And then that's how spirit communicates, is through clarity. But see, that's why it requires training, because you have to break the human mind. That's why every meditation practice always talks about ego. And really what they're talking about is the human mind. And like we've been talking about this winter, the shadow work, right? Dissolving the shadow and integrating it into the light. Yeah, you want it to be real, not your ego or imagination. Exactly. Yeah, and meditation is hard. It's not easy. Can drumming be a form of meditation? Yeah, drumming can be a form of meditation. Drumming will activate and bring in spiritual power. That's why most indigenous cultures always have a drum of some sort. Doesn't matter if it's a hand drum or this type of drum or, a bucket, any kind of drum, because what does the drum represent? It represents the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And so when you're drumming, you're connecting to the heartbeat of the mother, and you're connecting to all of life's creation, because the heart, it connects everybody and everything. And so when you're connecting to the heart, you're also connecting to the emotion around realms. You're connecting to that higher vibration, because they say that the heart vibrates 20,000 times more than the brain. See, that's why. And so another way you can say is becoming a pure heart. That's what the spiritual path is. It's about becoming a pure heart, because that's where spirit will enter. And I'm talking about good spirit. I'm talking about benevolent spirit, celestial beings. I'm talking about the ones that you want, your ancestors, the good ones, the ones that will help you. Because if you want the ones that will harm you, that's another path. That's another thing. And there are people, the thing that is hard about what they call light and dark, or right and wrong, or left path, right path, whatever you want to call it, is it looks the same in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, the rituals, the ceremonies, everything almost looks the same. It's the intention and energy behind it, and what kind of energies and frequencies you're working at. Because like if you're trying to do hexes and curses and that kind of stuff, those are different spirits than the ones I'm talking about. Those are what people call the demons or the trickster spirits. That's the thing. Is so when you're working with that, and there's some people who work with that. I just saw a TikTok the other day with a lady who was like telling people how to work with those spirits, and it looks very similar. In fact, students will tell me, what's the difference? And then when you really look at it, you see, oh, this is what they're doing. That's different than what we're doing. Okay, it's different. But that's why you got to know. You got to know that there is those things too. People do those things. But it's a different path. How do you connect to your ancestors? You got to ask them, do you work in love? Yes. You got to ask them, and you got to know. You got to know the difference between somebody tricking you and somebody helping you. That's the first thing you got to know, whether they're living or dead. Okay. You got to know, is this person or spirit helping me or tricking me? And if they're tricking you, you need to get away from them. It's like the used car salesman trying to sell you that lemon car. It's like, everything here on planet Earth that's trying to trick you and con you. And how do they come at you? That's a big thing with spiritual work too, is like, how do these spirits approach you? Are they trying to be like love bombing you and, wow, you're going to be rich and famous, and if you do this, if you do, they usually will entice you with something egoic. They will entice you with something egoic. That's the promise of a trickster, whether it's a living trickster or a spiritual trickster. They will entice you. They will even entice you with spiritual power. They will entice you with something that you want. That's the whole thing about a trickster. And then a benevolent spirit, a helpful spirit, somebody who's here to help you, is not going to do that. They're going to come when you ask them to come. They're only going to come when you ask them for help. And that's why you have to empower them. That's the whole process of empowering them. And when you know the spirits that you want to work with, and you empower them and you form a relationship with them, then and only then can you really get the help you want and need, because it's a relationship. It's just like anything. It's like anything. And your ancestors don't want to be Santa Claus either. You know what I mean? They're not here to be Santa Claus. They're not here to do special favors and stuff. That's not the reason you work with your ancestors. Your ancestors require lots and lots of prayer. Yeah, that's how you connect to your ancestors, through prayer, meditation, fasting, offerings, rituals. Yeah, having an ancestor altar and feeding them is a form of empowerment. So when you do the altar, you want to think of it like, you're feeding them. And when you feed them, they become nice and plumpy and powerful, right? Versus starving and depleted. Yeah. Hello. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the third eye because I wanted to finish this. Would seeing triangles be a sign of third eye awake? Because sometimes seeing triangles is that the triangle has a very deep meaning. So I recommend looking it up in the symbols book and seeing what types of triangles you're seeing. Are they upside down? Are they right side up? Are they, 90 degrees? There's triangles have lots and lots and lots of different meanings. Santa Claus comes with Krampus. Yeah. Yeah, build an altar. I have some videos on my TikTok and YouTube too on altar building. Okay, so another symptom of the third eye is prophetic dreams. Intense, psychic, prophetic though, like they're real. Or message dreams where you're dreaming of people and people you communicate with in daily life, and they have a message that they want you to give to that person. Like for instance, when my mom's friend died, she came to me in a dream and she told me, like, please tell your mom I'm okay. And that was like her message. And so something like that. That was just off the chart. I was just thinking about, but like something like that, for an example, where you have a dream that's a message for somebody else, or it's a prophetic dream of things that are about to happen, or something with the dream world turns on, and it's not like those, funny, weird dreams, but they're true to life, visionary dreams, or telling you something. The highest form of dreaming is when you receive a teaching in your dream. Those are the highest forms of dreaming, is when you're in the dream world and a teacher comes to you and starts teaching you about ancient whatever. Like one time I was dreaming and this man appeared in my dream he was an elder, and he was teaching me the teachings of the teepee. But the things he was teaching me are things I've never heard before, like old teachings that aren't in existence anymore. And they were all about things that I've never heard about. They were like deep teachings about the teepee in a dream. So something like that, where you're receiving intense teachings that don't come from this world. You have 2 to 3 dreams, and yeah, good. If you have dreams, write them down. If you're just starting to dream again, you're going through a third eye awakening, or you've been going through a third eye awakening, make sure you write down the dreams, especially when you're first going through the awakening process. When you're first going through the awakening process, you want to write down those dreams, okay? See, you dream with your dead relatives. Write it down. Write it down. Those are gifts. The thing about it, this is the teaching about dreams, is that when you do not dream, the ancestors said it's like being a dead person. That's how important dreams are. When you are not dreaming, it's like you're dead. That's what the ancestors said. And so when you're not dreaming, it means something is turned off here. You are either on automatic mode, you are either, not paying attention to your life, or something's going on to where you're almost just barely alive. You're barely dreaming. You're barely alive. You can remember dreams you had as a child. Those sequence dreams like that always have some meaning. So make sure to write them down. And when they keep coming back over and over and over again, that has more significant meaning. With being paralyzed in sleep as a child, sleep paralysis is very common, actually. It's very common as a child, and even people have that as they're adults. And usually what that is, it's when your body is leaving, or not your body, your spirit is leaving into the spirit realm, into the Mikland, into the dream world. You can have that experience when you astral travel too, and you're just more conscious and aware that your spirit is slipping. And then, you'll have that experience too when you're waking up. And you know how when you're waking up or even in a good meditation, when you're in a really good meditation and you're like, and you'll have that moment where it's like you feel your spirit coming back into your body. So that's very common. Where did the soul go if you're not dreaming? Well, if you're not dreaming, then you're just probably in one of those other states of sleep. You're either in deep sleep or kind of asleep. Depends if you're tossing and turning. But when you're not dreaming, and I mean not dreaming like not dreaming and you don't remember the last time you had a dream. I've talked to people like that, where they're like, I don't even know the last time I had a dream. It was months ago. It was, so long ago that I don't even remember. That's when it's a problem. That's when it means that your spirit is somehow not connected. It's not connected. And you want to look at all elements of your life. You want to look at your diet. You want to look at your, place of living. You want to look at your job. You want to look at your stress. You want to look at your physical condition, your mental condition, everything. And you want to work towards getting your dream life going again. You want to do lucid dreaming activities. You want to start the process of getting your dreams back, because that's how important the dreams are. It's a very necessary part of your walk, especially if you're wanting to develop spiritual gifts. If you want to develop spiritual gifts and you're not dreaming, it's impossible. It's impossible. And that's another form of empowerment. So a lot of times when students start working with me and then we open the dream time, they'll say, oh my God, I started dreaming again. And then they'll start having those profound dreams, like we're talking about, prophetic dreams, dreams of significant meaning, dreams that have messages for yourself and others, because that's the whole point of dreaming, is to receive messages. Let's see. It felt like I was not breathing. Yeah, that's how sleep paralysis feels, like you're not breathing. You used to have very scary dreams. The smoke helped to stop them. If you're also having scary dreams, you want to have a dream catcher. I want to dream now and I can't. Yeah, get a dream catcher. I think you're afraid of the dreams. If you used to have scary dreams as a child, that means that either you or your ancestral line has a lot of trauma. When you have chaotic, scary, nightmarish dreams, it means that you have trauma, either your trauma or your family's trauma. And when you're a child having those types of dreams, it means you're clearing for your family lineage. And if you still can't dream because of it, then it's now time to create a sleepy environment so that you can start to trust your subconscious again. You can start to trust the spirit world again. You can start to build that relationship, because sometimes the reason we don't dream is trauma related. And that's why it's almost like being dead, because then it's only a reflection then of what's going on in the daytime world too, because the nighttime world and the daytime world are very closely related. And so you want to get your dream time back. I would start with shadow work and trauma work, especially if you had scary dreams as a child. Yeah, how do you do that again? Start dreaming again. Well, that's what I mean. It's different for everybody. I can't just say this is how you start to dream again, because I have to first know why you stopped dreaming. So I'd have to do a session with you and say, okay, why you stopped dreaming? Okay, let's see why. What does the spirit world say about that? What were the events that happened in childhood or stress related, like something recently? You could start to think about, when did I stop dreaming? When did I stop dreaming? That's where you would start. When did I last have my last dream? And if it was so long ago you can't remember, then that means that there's a lot of trauma there. You're welcome, Judy. Okay, good. You dream every night. You've had dreams of very intense and fast flying. Yes, as a child. Yeah, you can put mugwort. Mugwort helps with some dreaming. Yeah, you see exactly. You had no protection, always by yourself. So for you, Ty's quest, the first thing you have to feel is safe in order to dream. And I would start like putting lavender around, make a nice bedroom where you don't have any distractions, no technology. You take your phone out, take everything out of your room and create a safe, loving environment. And then now feed your subconscious that message and say, it's safe for me to dream again. It's safe for me to see the world again. It's safe for me to open my spiritual gifts. This is why it's really sad in America, because a lot of people turn down their spiritual gifts as a child, either because of trauma or because of the abuse they received by receiving gifts. So like if you grew up in a very religious home, or you grew up in a home where this was very, demonic or evil or something, and you could see things, you knew things, you had visions, you were prophetic, as a young child, you got the message that this is dark and dirty and not a good thing to have. And then it became like, your reality. And then and the thing about spiritual gifts is like, you have them as a child, at some point they reawaken in adulthood. They will reawaken. And that's the shadow work that you have to heal. And luckily the spirit world is usually like conscious of what you can and can't handle, right? But it's still intense. Yeah, off and on dreaming is okay. It's off and on dreaming is okay. Not everybody dreams every night. I mean, we should healthily, even if you go and you study the brain, we do dream. It's just a lot of times we don't remember the dreams, right? And that's why you work on dream recall, lucid dreaming, and building that spiritual connection. Because the more connected you are, the more you're going to dream. And I'm not talking about, chaotic and distorted dreams, because that's not any better than not dreaming. If you have a lot of chaotic, distorted, strange, don't make any sense dreams, those really aren't very helpful either. That's why we have to practice lucid dreaming and how to control the dream world, because we want our dreams to have meaning, purpose, and make sense. They have to make sense. And part of making sense is understanding symbology and the language of dreams. That's our responsibility. We have to learn that. It's like learning a foreign language. However, having chaotic, nightmarish, terrible dreams is trauma related. Yeah. So our whole thing is about how to make our dreams as fruitful as possible so that they benefit our waking life. Oh, good night. Thanks for coming back, Rhonda. You didn't have dreams. You didn't have dreams for the last several years. I was married. I think that's something you started back after your divorce. That happens a lot. That's just all the way telling. It's like I was sleeping through my divorce until I divorced him. I woke up. Yeah. So brainless, like you haven't been able to recall dreams for over 9 years, and when you do it, it's never good. That's where you would want to practice lucid dreaming and start getting into the practice of shadow work and seeing, what is it really that's blocking that? Yeah. Yeah. I think you probably know that, Ninja, that your husband was pretty toxic, right? Yeah. You think you could see spirit as a child? Mom said I had a brother, but I really don't. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Kids will say that stuff. They'll say, "Mommy, somebody's there." And the mom will say, "No, there's nobody there." And there's somebody there. Okay. So the dreams become more prophetic. That's part of the awakening. Another part of the awakening that a lot of people, and you probably will identify with this, will see or experience is the shadows out of the peripheral of your eye, or when you look, you blink, there's a shadow, but then it disappears. That's a part of the awakening. Shadows, ghosts, spirits, orbs, something that you never saw before. That's the third eye awakening. You were trauma. Something was always trying to take me away. When I was a child, I used to get in trouble for talking to wild animals and bringing them home. Yeah, the blue lights. That's another one. Blue lights. When you're seeing blue lights, orbs, flashes, things that you didn't see before. That's the whole thing. It's like with the dreams. These are new symptoms, things that you've never experienced before, or you haven't experienced since, childhood or something. Yeah. That happened to you this morning. You're very, yeah. Yeah. See, I saw you see that, so I prepared it. No. But that's the third eye. That's what it is. Something is awakening. Things are occurring. My mom had a thing like that happen. She was on one of those amethyst biomat beds, and she's like at the massage therapist or something, and they threw her on that bed and she never experienced it. And to this day, she talks about it. She's like, wants to get one of those beds so bad. But she said that she was just laying there, and all of a sudden she saw these like purple flowers just, they were coming out of her third eye. And she said it was like the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, but it was like that amethyst bed, amethyst evoked that. And she was just in the right place at the right time. Then she tried to do it again and none of that happened. It's just this like occurrence that happens. That's the third eye. And it's releasing, it's opening, it's blossoming, especially when you're starting to see flowers. That means there's blossoming and awakening happening, like the lotus and stuff like that. But also part of the third eye awakening is you could see ghosts or spirits or shadows or flashes of light, something like that. Your aunt had that bed. Wait, I think I missed something here. So that's part of it. I think we talked about the eye pressure or stuff like that, like even people with glaucoma and stuff. Now, when you're starting to have multiple symptoms, then you definitely know you're going through the third eye awakening. I always see a bright, bold purple light and then a door. Yeah. Maybe now practice going through the door. See what happens. But, another thing that can happen, and can happen when you're doing like psychedelics, spirit medicine, but it can also happen when you're doing nothing. Is you see these visions and these when you're on psychedelics and you're on plant medicine and stuff, it's going to be more intense, and it's a tool. See, the thing about the psychedelics is it's just a tool. It's not the thing. The thing is actually here. But what happens when you're taking those medicines is it activates this and it takes you to those levels. But then ultimately it'll take you from 1 to 1,000 to get to 2. You have to come back to planet Earth at some point. Crystals can do that too. When you're meditating with crystals, certain crystals can help you activate and all that. What about colors when you meditate? Yeah, colors have all different meanings. My wife's birthday, I was close when we kept appearing in my dreams after he passed away. I didn't like it. Yeah, it could be a healing. Sometimes when people we love pass away unexpectedly, then they come back in dreams for healing. People always tell me that they dream of me taking them to healers or shamans. Yeah, that's cool. So That's the power of a dream. When we dream walk like that, that's part of the lucid dreaming training, is learning how to dream walk. But with dream walking, people will have a message for you and you'll have a message for them. And the more expanded your energy field, the more influence you'll have in dreams too. We'll talk about that another time, because that's a whole nother door. Okay. So another part of a third eye awakening is that you will have visions of people, places, and things when you're awake. So we talked about the dreams in the nighttime, but when you're just, sitting here daydreaming, boom, vision pops in about a person, place, or thing. It could be about your life, but usually it's around other people, because now you have a message for them. See, the whole purpose of a third eye awakening is to receive messages from the spirit world. But sometimes what happens is that our third eye is so blocked up, clogged up. It has a bunch of spiritual debris all over it. We've been over and over using it and not releasing the energies. And now that's when you're going to have the sinus issues, the migraines, the this, the that. It's like something is just like heavy on it, and it will feel like somebody is sitting on your third eye. And that's when you'll want to do some energy work and some clearing, maybe get to a hot springs or something and help physically release that energy. Because especially if you're an empath or somebody who's very sensitive to energy, that is going to get clogged up right there, because you're taking all that energy in there and you're not releasing it. Okay. Another part of the third eye awakening, you'll have those visions, but then you'll also have ideas and new creative outlets. You'll have new creativity, new energy, new things. And people who have their third eye awaken have some of the best ideas that can move humanity forward. That's what they call the visionary, because of coming from the spirit world. And then now it is our opportunity to create it. That's what they really call manifest. But the thing about manifest in the modern new age, it means like you're doing something. It's an egoic thing, because I manifested that. And it's usually revolving material goods. I manifested that house. I manifested that job. I manifested that man or woman, whatever, that car. But in shamanic terms, we never say that. We'll never say I manifested anything. We always give the credit to the spirit world. The spirit world did that. The spirit world healed that person. The spirit world did this. It's because we understand that we as humans can't do the impossible. Some people say God, God or universe or whatever, right? Love manifested that, but it's not coming from something I did. It's coming from the spirit world. Because the thing is, the spirit world doesn't just manifest the good things. It manifests awful and terrible and downright dirty things, because it's a lesson. So what we understand from an ancient perspective is that everything is a lesson or blessing, and they're both equal in power, and one is not better than the other, and we don't prefer one over the other. Because when we start to have a preference towards only the good things and don't look at the bad things, we're delusional. And then the same thing's true if we only look at the bad things and don't acknowledge the good things, we're also delusional. Because the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's in the good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the good, the ugly, the sad, the terrible, the right, the beautiful, the joyful, the ecstatic. All of it is part of life. And so we cannot discriminate between this or that, because then we will always make a preference towards one and not the other. And when life throws us the other, we're not prepared for it. And we're angry and resentful and bitter about it. And so we rather just integrate both and understand and accept good, bad, right, wrong. There must be a balance, exactly. Yeah, you're honored and grateful to work with the spirits. The universe is a song. The subconscious is part of your mind in the egoic structure, but the universe actually is the song that the universe, let's say it like this. It's the song of the cosmos that has manifested. See, there is an ancient story about how the universe was sung into existence. It's a really beautiful story. And these songs, these sounds are what we call mantras. So Om, in the Hindu is the ancient sound of the universe, because the universe is basically one big song. It's a song. And that's why when you can sing with the universe, that's what they call manifesting. You're co-creating with the universe, because the universe in essence is just one big black hole, and you can create whatever you want with it through your song. It's one song. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, like when you really understand it from a really ancient perspective, and you understand what the universe is, you understand the power of your voice. You understand the power of sound, because in the ancient understanding, this world was birthed through song. That's why there's power in song. Look at any tradition. There's always going to be dancing, singing. There's always dancing and singing and drumming, some kind of, or flute or some kind of ancient instrument, because that's the song of the universe. And naturally, when you sing, you dance. And when you dance, that's actually what we call action. And that's the hands of the universe now manifesting through the song of the universe. It's a really deep teaching. And that's why sound and music is so powerful. And that's why sound is universal. There's no end to sound. One thing I've never heard of, and maybe I know there's probably somebody who's like, I know somebody, but very rarely do you ever meet somebody in life who doesn't like some type of music. I've never met anybody who said, I hate every music. That's a very strange person, okay? I'm sure they're out there, but I've never met anybody who just said, I hate all music. I never listen to music. I can't stand it. Even, Beethoven, when he was deaf, he created some of the most complex, beautiful music in the world. So it's a very rare thing. And that's because music is universal, and then you can tell a lot by a person by what kind of music they listen to. You can tell a lot about a person. You can be like, what's your favorite kind of music? And they tell you something, you're like, oh, okay. That's I understand where your vibe is. I understand where you are. I understand, more about you. When, and then some people are like, I like all kinds of music. There are some people, I only like this music. Because music is all connected to frequency and sound. And frequency and sound is the creation of our life, and it is the creation of the universe. You like all music. Okay. And then finally, the third eye, the awakening of the third eye, when you're coming out of the intensity, when you're more integrated, when you're processed, when your gifts have turned on, you start to see your life in a whole new way. And that's what's going to lead us into April 20th, this next new moon. It's giving us the opportunity to see our life in a new way, in a transformed way, in a whole way, in a spiritual way, outside of the ego. And we see, the truths of who we are, why we're here, and what we can do to now sing our song into the universe. Okay. So is there any other questions? All right, so we can all take a breath and breathe. The third eye is kind of intense, but I wanted to talk about it before our new moon because I think a lot of people, especially if you're watching this live, you are, either have gone through or about to go through the third eye awakening. And you might think of some of these things later, or you might reflect upon, your own journey and what has happened and the events that have happened. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. My lives are on at Mondays on 8 p.m. And I'm gonna come on for the new moon, but I'll announce it. Where I announce when I'm gonna come on live is on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe, and also my Instagram stories. That's where when I will say, okay, I'm gonna come on live today. The pop-ups, but every Monday, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I do Meditation Monday, and it's always a different subject. Where can you look up the song story? I think you have to read like ancient texts, like the Bhagavad Gita, or a lot of oral traditions talk about that. I learned that a very long time ago from my own cultures and traditions. I don't know of any books that you can learn that from, though. Unfortunately, that's oral tradition. But if you read like ancient stories, you'll find that same story, and they'll talk about the sounds of the universe. You'll want to look up like Song of Universe or Sounds of Universe or stories. I don't know. Does the third eye area ever seem to physically expand? That's an interesting question. I don't know of any record cases like where they've measured it or something, but I know that when your third eye is expanding is like when you're doing meditation or dream work or something, you'll see like a huge eye, just like, like that Venus flytrap, like the long eyelashes. Maybe that's why the long eyelash trend is so big now, because that's what you'll see in meditation. When your third eye is starting to expand and grow, it's like you'll just see this huge eye going. So fast. How can I help my child's spirit to not be so judgmental? Are you talking about an actual spirit, or are you talking about your child's spirit? I'm not exactly sure. You're welcome. My time zone right now is Mountain Standard Time. Oh, you're welcome, Ty's Quest. Thank you. Yes, an eye looking back at you like. That's what it is. Oh, you're welcome. Looks right at me, or looks right to me. Puffy. Me getting older. I'm not sure. All righty, everybody. Well, thank you for joining me. I'll be back on Monday, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm also going to do a pop-up here this week. Not on the 20th. I won't be here on the 20th. So I'll either be here the 19th or the 21st, but be sure to go to my YouTube channel and you can see when I'll be on here next, or just follow me on TikTok or YouTube. All right. You're welcome, everybody. Many blessings and happy awakening. Bye now. About the success.